Hello and welcome to another episode of Speculative Speculations. And this is our first video episode with an awesome new intro. That was fantastic. So we are working our way through a memory called Empire, as usual, about 100 pages every week. We are discussing chapters 4 through 8 today. That brings us to page 195 in most of our editions. Jared did more homework than we needed to, maybe, but it was ambiguous, the reading assignment for this week. So Jared did more, I did
Jared
less.
did his homework correctly. Let's
Yes,
be fair. It was
that's true.
it was input error on my behalf for sure.
um, so what was I saying? The short story. We also read a short story every week. We are going to be talking about Good News from the Vatican by Robert Silverberg. These short stories are from the Big Book of Science Fiction, and we are reading our way through them. They are all, I think, organized in publication order in that book. The short story for next week is going to be When It Changed by Joanna Russ. And we will be reading to chapter 13 in A Memory Called Empire for next week or the next episode. I'm usually bad about posting these on time, but maybe now that we're recording video, I'll be better about it because there's no editing to do. We won't know. We won't know until we get to this
No.
episode and I start posting. Uh,
2027 is a great year. It's definitely an upturn in the years.
yes. Maybe. Wait, did we do the thing where you both introduced yourselves or like I
No, not at all. I mean,
okay.
the intro has totally, but our names are on screen now. It's
That's
fine.
true. That's
Um,
true. Fine. We'll just get right into it and talk about this thing then. So much more politicking in this section of
yeah.
the book, which
Uh,
was fun,
yeah,
I guess. Yeah,
I was too flabbergasted to introduce myself, anyways,
Yeah.
by that awesome intro. Uh, so,
that's true. It was a
um,
good intro.
wow. Wow. Yeah, this section was, I think, a little slower than the start.
Yes, sure.
But I still think it was a lot of important stuff going on. It's a lot of important world building, a lot of important relationship building. This our diplomat friend, Mahit, is now finding her way around her. Like the first part of the book, she was definitely thrown into the fire, like thrown into the pool deep end first, learn how to swim, and now she's like finally treading water and finally starting to find her way of just trying to deal with everybody in her situation, and it hasn't been easy. She doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't know,
Mhm.
there's, I think, if I remember correctly, wasn't there another um kind of incident as well? I'm trying to remember now. But
So we
anyways,
ended with the explosion, and then you had the incident with Three Seagrass where her cloud thingy blew up in
yeah,
her face,
right,
and
yeah.
and, and then she was basically whisked away. And we start this section then with her being taken to the most dangerous politic person in the most cunning or whatever way you want to look at. So it does create that sense of unease, I think, straight off the bat for our little section here.
Yeah. Yeah. So the conversations were fascinating between that and her speculation about how they're, how they what they're thinking and how they're working as far as what they say and what they really mean and all that stuff. And I thought it was pretty fascinating reading. Like I said, it wasn't as fast paced as
Yeah.
the first section, but still very interesting, I think.
Yeah. I found it really interesting, the kind of what was said out loud and what Mahit was thinking. That happened an awful lot through it, as she sometimes was using her skills as a diplomat, and then sometimes just completely and utterly winging it. and trying to do that, and telling us, the reader, that that's what was happening, and even when she makes a mistake, when she doesn't make a mistake, and kind of the negotiating this world of which we're alien to, but she's very alien to as well. And I think, like you quite rightly said, Jared, it's a good example of a lot of world building happening just in settings and words, and even in the way that poetry is used, and as being such a
Yeah.
vital part of that society. I think it's really interesting to see an incredibly literate society being portrayed here, kind of like the opposite of our own in much ways. That they're going deeper into literacy, whereas we're kind of stepping away from it in some ways as a society. But kind of how the danger that lies in words and the intricacies that lie in words. I found it like compelling the whole way through because it's kind of it feels very rich in
Mm.
terms of what you're reading.
Yeah, I also love the idea that this is a culture that's, well, I don't know if this is just Mahit's interpretation of the state of Texkalan or if this is just how they are and she knows it to be true. But um, the possibility that this culture is trying to live its epics, or like that's sort of the idea. They are trying to live an epic life or live in story. Like there were a few times when Mahit has an idea about something bad that might be happening, and then she tells herself, no, that's a literary trope, right? Like you might say, nah, that's something from the movies, that's not going to happen in real life almost. But she's using it, like, the fact that what she's stopping herself with is, as that's a literary trope. Like there's this idea that they are living their lives out as if they are stories, but also that they are they have to be unique-ish stories, not just tropes. Like it's something that she thinks won't happen because it's a literary trope, right? I like that thought process, and I think it's interesting, and I want to see where that goes.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great point actually about the living the epic. I like that how you said that. That's really cool because they do have their epics, and they are an expanding empire, which is what many epics are made out of. That kind of manifest destiny that the empire is going to expand, and they want to assimilate all. They want to keep going, and that's one of the things that comes up is eventually is her own uh, station that she comes from, Elel or something like that.
Listen,
Is
yeah.
is that also going to be incorporated into the empire? And that's really a great. It's a great point because she's worked so hard to become a part of this society, and yet it's a society that's eventually going to consume
Yeah.
her own. How do you live with that? How do you feel about that? You know that contradiction. Yeah.
Yeah, because it kind of plays on those kind of on not just a singular idea of military kind of intervention, because obviously that's sort of floating in the background here, that there's this mystery of the ships and where they're going and that kind of stuff. So this kind of military concurrence going on. But this section also dives a lot into how cultural takeover is happening
Yeah.
between
Right.
the stories, etc. And it's not, again, not something you normally see in fiction these days. This kind of idea of cultural takeover that's happening. It's almost like a game of Civilization on the PC. Your different modes of victory. As it goes there, but I think that's really interesting. The pervasiveness of their poetry and the power of their poetry, being a vehicle to subsume all of these other cultures and races into them, while also having this. I, I think it's fair to say that their system of government is a strange one, and actually strangely links to the short story. I think a little bit, insofar as you have this aging daddy emperor kind of person that has genetic kind of heirs. The line of succession isn't totally defined. It's like they're going to fight for it. It's almost like a cotillion kind of society or something like that.
Mm.
That's happening, and we get introduced to each of the players and that just a little bit at the start, just very brief kind of introductions to each of them. Some of them directly, and some of them through their supporters, which I thought was interesting. So, like again, it's kind of all of this kind of stuff swirling around my head at the moment as she's trying to battle. Where am I? What am I doing? What did Iskander do before me? Why did he get killed? What's going on here? And then we get occasionally just these little flashes of influence from Iskander that make us, the reader, question what's going on with this. Is it just like a faulty wiring connection, or is there kind of something more kind of going on here?
Yeah.
I find it incredibly fascinating.
There's also the implication that someone on Cell may have sabotaged her imago,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Which, when she was first considering the idea of sabotage, I was like, how does that even make sense? Because who on what takes Kalan would sabotage her? But then she gets that cryptic note from the Council of Pilots, was it, who tells her that somebody may have messed you up with your imago, and she's it's still not clear whether it seems that there's something there, but and it's sort of showing up and it's necessary, so it seems to have some programming changed for sure, right? Because she does have this whole um, thought process about how if the imago was in fact destroyed, then it would have like destroyed some nerve connection, like basically she'd have some brain damage from it if it was in fact quite as broken as it seems to be right now. So there may be something else going on with it.
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. And you have that you mentioned that line of succession with the emperor. Um and but she also has her own sort of succession messed up by this interference. Um and that the imago is a its own kind of carrying on of things and passing on of knowledge and stuff like that, and it's unique, so you wonder why was Iskander killed. What is it? It deepens them because there's a reason behind this, and she hasn't gotten there yet. And so I like it a lot. It's really it really brings out these questions, and it's deep in that way. And I really am enjoying the heck out of this book so far because of all those things that you're wondering about. And it's not like these it's not questions that you just bring up like, oh, I wonder about something. The questions that we're bringing up are directly related to the story.
Mm.
It's not just these odd philosophical questions that come up in whatever sci-fi. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't want to be the person to say this like every week, but like we read this section, what is it, about 80 pages or so, really, in reality, is what we read here. And I was reading it kind of going, like, nothing much has happened, in actual events wise. Like, there's nothing really happened. As usual, what are we going to talk about of this? But the more you think about it, like, everything's happening, everything's kind of happening off the page. And I think we often talk about this idea that, like, a lot of the books that we like to read, trust the reader to kind of fill in a lot of the blanks yourself and do that kind of stuff. And that you compare it to the last book that we read, there was nothing but action where everything happened and we nothing to talk about. And I think that probably speaks more to who we are as readers, probably more so than necessarily the two books in their own right, because like you just said, Jared, I'm enjoying the heck out of this because of all of the possibilities. For as much as I don't know, I'm sure a ton of people will read this and be of a different slant and go, it's dry. There's nothing happening. I need something to happen, inject a bit of life into it. But I mean, it just shows you the kind of different slants that people take towards the kind of books they read, and why people like different genres and that kind of stuff. Because this is everything in setup, and in some ways, I don't want there to be an answer anytime soon. I like the kind of layering that's going on here. Ultimately, as we found before with other books, as soon as I start to give us answers is when you start to go, oh, that's not as cool as I thought it was going to be, or something like that. But definitely the setup here is it's so nuanced. These relationships, and again, this idea of a new person coming in with the memory supposedly of somebody else with it, that other people, it now seems to be like an open secret that everybody knows this in this society, because Mahat's trying to work out the prior relationships that all of these people had with the scanner without him knowing, but he can tell by how they're interacting. Like the 10-year-old successor, fascinating. Obviously knew the scanner in some way, like even though they were only 10, but we're just dropped in there. A very chance meeting. You're not supposed to be here, and that a couple of lines that are said, and you. It's even restated at the end when they leave each other. What could they possibly have meant by that? And you're just left to drift on to the next kind of encounter as they make their way around this little party, and as our ambassador gets more and more drunk, which I think is quite funny as well.
Yeah. Not just her, but her attaché, her
Yeah.
her
Liaison.
liaison. Yeah, that's the word.
Skirta
And
is what it's called. Yeah.
Three Seagrass. Yeah, and and I think even her warden, basically the person imprisoning her in her own apartment, or in the person's apartment, she's even she's even getting a little tipsy as well. And the but it was so interesting because you were seeing that through that view, and you're seeing it, this party, because of her state of mind and her inebriation. The party itself feels surreal as she's making her way through the whole thing, and then she like kind of walks out into a hallway and just to get away from it for a little bit. And I just love how all that felt. And you brought up the poetry earlier, um in the language, and in how they react with each other and all that stuff. And I love that line where um she's looking at somebody doing the poetry. I think 11 Conifer, I think, or maybe it was 30 Larkspur. I don't know. All these names hilarious. But the but she mentions that he was as flexible as a holograph, bending in the light, saying different words at different angles of approach. And I just love that description of, he's not just speaking the poetry. He has all these angles and approaches, and the light matters, and everything else matters to the poetry he's delivering. And I thought that was just outstanding.
And I love that because some guy did a political poem, or like the one who I guess was most anticipated to win the competition. He made an extremely political statement, and someone with a very lackluster poem apparently won. And then they all made fun of it by having their own contest that started off with the last line of that poem. I just love that scene, and also the fallout for Mahit from that. This intense need to belong while also sort of trying to, like, that dissonance in her identity with being a cell person and also needing to belong, like be a Tix Kalan person, like the way they are. She's like, she spent her entire life learning about this culture, and she gets this huge punch in the gut that she probably is never going to be considered part of it. At most, she might be humored. I mean, this doesn't seem like something that she can't really learn. Maybe if she applies herself to it, but I don't know. It doesn't seem
Yeah.
like something that you would want to spend your time on, given all the other.
But
ambassadorial responsibilities.
she's just a clever barbarian. That's it.
Yeah, that's
That's
it.
all she is.
What do you guys think of the is unironic the right word use of the word barbarian, where where she also calls refers to herself as a barbarian. It I almost get the sense that it means something else in like it's translated from Tex Kalani as barbarian, so to speak, but it might mean something else for Tex Kalan. But like I feel like there's a lot of nuance there with the use of that word because it evokes everything that that word does, right? And I think every time I see that word used in the context of people who are not Tex Kalan, it's slim. uh, it feels wrong. But the fact that she's so accepting of it, that the other non Kalani folk are accepting of it, tells me there's more to it than that. But it's on the edge of acceptability, and that makes that dynamic very intriguing overall.
Yeah, it's a good point. There is something to be read into that, I think, and I wonder how that's going to be come into play as well because they're not barbarians in the sense that they don't have culture and they don't have technology because we know that she comes from a place that has a technology the empire does not have. And so I think you're right in that there's a lot more meaning in that term than just just not civilized. And the it makes you wonder this empire that's expanding, how did they get their power? How did they, what is it that they have over other societies and cultures that they're able to expand the way they are? Just bigger spaceships or what have you, more firepower for some reason. And so, what is it that who's the real barbarians? Is it just a show of strength? That's kind of barbaric if that's the only reason they're able to expand and conquer the way they do. That's kind of barbaric in and of itself. So yeah, that's a very interesting point you bring up.
Yeah, isn't barbaric kind of like a connotation is they're not as advanced as we are, or their practices, and yet this kind of Texcolani society, at least what we see, which seems to be the upper classes, is a genetics-based society. So while the Liesel or Elsel or whatever way you want to call them are kind of using these imagos to kind of project memories forward, they're using genetic engineering so that it's going almost like Foundation. If you, I was reminded of Foundation quite a bit when I was reading um, this little section here, and so like again perspective and that matters because we might look ethically as a society now and go kind of genetic engineering as a way of maintaining a class system is barbaric, and yet they haven't made that society would look at anything not that as barbaric. So I think it's one of those, like an awful lot of this section is kind of fish out of water, little parts where she's the outsider looking into their society, whereas if they were in any other place, they might think differently. And you get obviously the other ambassador from the other Davo. I think that's
Yeah.
the other place basically saying, "Oh, we all have like a tea party once every Friday." Doesn't say exactly that, but that's kind of what they're saying. That we can come along and kind of help each other along, and you even get the sense of also because of maybe the imago or the way that's been going on that she's looking at them going, "Oh, you really aren't at the races here. You aren't playing the same game as I am." She's judging them for the way that they're interpreting it, and she's going to do it her own way. So again, all very very interesting approach to all of that stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the levels of superiority, right? Most Tex Kalani, I'm not gonna try to say that it's lim, but they think of themselves as superior or more cultured than her, and she feels like that about this other ambassador. I think that was a very nice scene in that regard and how much it did. Like you said, Chris, it's like, yeah, it sort of all these sort of I guess power structures. It's exploring that, and I think it goes to show a little bit how arbitrary this mechanism is to decide that, in culture, again, is an interesting word because like it's supposed to be um, it's something that makes you feel superior for being cultured, right? But all it means is you know some things about more some artistic aspects of life than maybe other people do. But
Right.
does that make you a better person than others? What are the things that matter?
Yeah.
And um, yeah, so this feels, and it's not designed to be, I don't think, but the arbitrariness of determining who's superior based on the use of language and what you're speaking and so on, like that's a lot that we do in the real world, right? And this is zeroing in on that. I don't think it's really intending to explore that aspect of it, the arbitrariness, which I think that's my opinion,
Yeah.
the arbitrariness aspect of it. But sorry, go ahead, Jared.
Do you think that it reveals a little bit of arrogance on her part that
Yeah,
she definitely doesn't feel like she's down in their class of these other
Absolutely.
ambassadors, and she mentions that like how she mentions how long like how good her aptitude tests were and how and all this all this stuff she did so well at in order to land this position. And when somebody says to her, I think it was as Adzi 19 Adzi says to her, um she says to her, I think Iskanda would have liked you. And she was a little bit hurt by that because she thinks that she's the one who has all the insight on Iskander just because of the Imago. But in reality, a lot of people knew him even better than she does, even
Mhm.
with the Imago, and
That's right.
even more so now because it's screwed up. But um, and so that kind of hurt her a little bit. So she does have this little bit of arrogance about her and about her position and her standing and stuff like that. So uh, that's just some great observations and character dynamics going on.
yeah. And she is, like, I think this wanting to be part of this culture and be considered one of them. And I don't know if this is true, but do you think it implies a feeling of like inferiority with where she's from, or is it just a matter of degree, how much she likes what?
Mm. I don't think we really know enough about Mahit now because, like you say, it could be inferiority. It could be her masking just her general unease, and that she has to project that she's superior to everybody else or something like that because she's supposed to have this um disadvantage over other races. Um, but there are moments like it's very clear to me that she's going to rely a lot on personal relationships. So obviously trusts three seagrass implicitly already,
Hmm.
which may or may be a mistake, depending how
Yeah,
this goes. I think yeah, no, that's how that goes, and the people
I mean,
that are around them.
but I like her. Can you blame her?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, very likable.
Yeah,
Would be a
yeah.
person to insert as an attaché. You know, because of the
So
skill set.
so seamlessly played into her thing
Mhm.
with 19 19 pearl, how many ever
1990.
pearl,
Oh yes,
10
nine
pearl,
pearl. Yeah, whatever.
yeah, some number of pearls. Is it bothering anyone else that all these numbers precede words that are not pluralized? Anyway,
But it's not English; it's poetry. Like, come
that's
on,
true.
for our sake.
So yeah, I loved how seamlessly she played into that act. I like her too, Jared. I do not blame you at all, not even a little bit.
It's great.
Um, what about that big ship that's apparently hanging out near the
Yeah,
Zell station?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to
We're gonna
say
have
it.
to agree on what way that's pronounced, because
That's
that
true.
is that is not even one of those words where you can look at and go, "Oh, I think it's probably this." It could be anything.
Yeah, it's Ilsil,
Ilsil, I
Ilsil,
think's not bad.
Ilsil.
Yeah,
Okay, Ilsil.
Also,
Ilsil.
Fine.
Yeah,
Ilsil makes
made up science
sense.
fiction words. They're great. Um, yeah,
Pronunciation, guys.
that whole thing is like bubbling in the background. It's almost being told to us in like news stories, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
like again, very video gamey of like finding, logging onto computers and reading messages on computers. That kind of thing, like getting your lore through the codex system or something like that. It's very much of that field, which I very much enjoy, because it does kind of it lets you introduce elements in the story without actually having to deal with them. It's just the way I read it off in a basic USB stick, as it seems to be. These info fixtures seem to be USB sticks, which I think is a really interesting way to use that kind of stuff. But even that way that she dealt with all the correspondence and the like coded messages that she's getting, and the people looking out for her and stuff, like, "You're trapped there, I'm gonna go save you." Love that whole thing. There's so much fun. And I, again, this kind of book, I love when you just create a playground. Like, all these things can kind of happen. There's some danger there. I don't think we feel that she's safe at all. I think there's real peril here for Mahit.
mhm,
It's not likely to die, but everybody else is fair game.
yeah,
And we also don't know one person that's good, definitely, and one person that's bad, definitely. It's good fun.
Yes, as most it's good political intrigue. We don't
Mm.
know who to side with. We don't know what the thing we are fighting over is, but everybody's distrustful of everybody else.
yeah. And one of those messages you mentioned, Chris, did mention that the warships were transmitting through the
That's true.
sector, and that Iskander screwed that up somehow, or did he? And you're wondering about that as well.
Yeah.
I wish you guys went to the end of chapter 9.
Oh, is that
Don't worry, I'll be reading it directly after this, Jared. So we can discuss afterwards, or otherwise. That's funny. But yeah, on one hand, this book seems like it's about a murder mystery, like what happened to Iskander. But on the other hand, it feels like as soon as we know who killed Iskander, we'll be like, but that's not what this book's about. It's going to be one of those classic the moving target kind of thing. There's bigger political intrigue. There's things happening, and I have to say, I'm actually very glad that this isn't just a one book series, because it kind of means that we as the reader can kind of go, oh, it's not just going to be resolved very quickly. Nearly
Mm,
halfway through the book, we can resolve part of it, but we can expand the rest of it out. And yeah,
yeah,
that's good fun.
it is. And was it supposed to, like, was it designed as a 2-book series, or?
Yeah, I don't know about that at the
Hmm,
time. um
yeah, I'm just curious, but
we might know by the time we get to the end. We might know
yeah,
whether, there's definitely open-ended here or not.
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely it's a political murder, so that always involves a lot more than just the murder itself, and
Yeah.
so it makes it more. It's definitely more fascinating. Um, boring old murder. No, but yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
very good stuff?
Yeah. One
Yeah,
other
I
thing I'd
like.
like to mention, sorry, as well, is the bit where he flashes back and he sees Iskander's arm in the shower. Like,
Yes.
that bit was really cool. I mean, I was
Yeah.
freaked out a little bit. I thought it was a bit like a horror movie at the time. I was like, oh my God. Just there's something happening in the air, the toxins to turn her arm into a hairy arm or something. She's turning into a werewolf. I could see like American Werewolf in Paris and, like, and London kind of happen. But no, it wasn't. It was just the flashback of a Skinner, which told her that he had been there before. This kind of flash in time and place. And I thought, there's another really cool concept to kind of put in here. The Scander's Imago is not working, but it'll kick in at completely relevant time. So he's been in the shower and showered in a relationship with
Yes.
19 ads out and that kind of stuff. Again, don't need to spell it out in loads of parts, but you can just kind of throw that out there and just kind of step back from it, and then never have mentioned it really in any depth. The 19th, it talks about it very briefly,
Yeah.
but not really in any depth because we're in a diplomatic state here, and you don't want to overplay your hand. You want to see where you're at, and yeah.
That's an interesting point. Sorry, to latch onto the second half of what you said. It's the diplomatic setting, I think, is a great way to withhold information both from the reader and from other characters, right? Like, often a frustration with some books is, okay, like you could just tell them what you know, so you can you can move on and everybody can work on this together. But here it's not clear who you can trust and who you can't. So it's a really nice way to build a plot that requires secrecy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could say something really mean about Ream D right now, but
I've already done it.
you've already taken care of that today. Yeah. Yeah. And I love how I think this ties into the barbarian thing you were saying earlier because uh Mahit was mentioning that they were enjoying the fact that Texcalans were being kind of like a quiescent neighboring predator, and
Mhm.
not and her who was she talking to? She was talking to Three Seagrass, and she said, "Well, you make us sound like a mindless animal, the empire being an expansion like that." And she said, "Well, you do devour, and so she was comparing them to the animal state that most people would associate with the barbarian, and then they kind of went back and forth on the subtleties of what the word devour means and stuff like that, and so that theme seems to be running out, and that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the scene with the emperor where she went to greet the emperor, and how he grabbed her hand like they were old friends? I guess we already knew that Iskander was, but she felt some joy and an endorphin rush. Jared, I see you
He was hot,
smiling very brightly.
right?
with
He was hot, right? That's
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
What was up with that? Yeah,
yeah.
but he seems okay, and yeah, and Iskander has concern. He has an endorphin rush from the joy of
Yeah.
seeing him, apparently, and that's the
Again,
other
that
thing.
that was that was so reminiscent. I think of Embassy Town. Do you remember
Yeah.
when ABC
Ooh.
at this Banner show, she was speaking and the Embassy Town citizens were kind of, they couldn't control themselves and stuff. I thought, oh my
Yes.
god, that is so like that euphoria state that they were getting in was very similar.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Yeah, I was thinking of Embassy Town a lot throughout this. I think, yeah, the whole ambassador business, they're just slightly different from what ambassador means here, but I like the I guess the main difference between the two is that this one is third person and that one's first person. And I don't know if that's entirely why, but I think I like the main character a lot more with this book than I did Embassy Town. I wonder if it's a first person versus third person difference, although theoretically first person you tend to latch on to the characters more. But anyway,
Yeah, you would think you would like the other character
yeah.
more because you're more in their headspace when it's first person. But there was also something about Embassy Town that um, you just didn't trust, uh, and her character wasn't as
Yes.
I don't know. It just wasn't as personable as this one is for some reason. Maybe she was a bit more militaristic. I don't know,
Hmm.
but this one,
It's a very good point. I
yeah,
like that.
this one just characters just seems to be, even though it's third person, it's all her point of view, and so you are right there with her, but it's there's something about her need to fit in, whereas the Embassy Town character, she was kind of against where she was abrasive
Hmm.
towards where her place in the world was.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is trying to understand it all and trying to fit in, and you kind of explore with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what endears it to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very nicely put. Yeah.
I guess maybe because she's less in control than the Embassy Town protagonist was. Like that.
Yeah. I think maybe their position in society helps as well, because obviously Alice Bennett Cho in Embassy Town was a kind of nobody, but was elevated within society for kind of no reason. Like I remember we commented at the time that everybody seems to center around her, even though she's just a pleb in a lot of ways. So you happen to say the right thing at the wrong time. Whereas at least Mahit is an ambassador and has stations, so people coming up and speaking to her and involving her in events makes sense, especially when she's a new ambassador. It's just kind of like, right, okay, people are positioning and moving along. Even the meeting, I can't remember which character she went up to. 12 something. I just think of them by their numbers now. But which actually it's quite handy, I have to say. When he says you're making a scene here, yeah, and she's saying they'll intend this, but doing the whisper kind of close, kind of showing care in some way that they're sort of watching out for them a little bit. So
Yeah. It's cool stuff.
yeah.
Anything else before we move on? Yeah, there's the
Okay.
scary three-ringed ships. I want to know
Mm.
more about them.
Oh,
And I hear chapter 9's a good one as well. So I'm looking.
Mhm.
well, I'll start reading it right now out loud. You guys ready?
Oh dear. Good fun.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Good book. Really enjoying it. Really enjoying
Yes,
it.
really enjoying it. Cool. Are we ready to move on to the short story?
Good news from the Vatican.
Yes.
So this is a satire about the election of a new pope to a society which is going to elect an AI robot pope to it, and the kind of the intricacies. Yeah, I'll not go into the depth of it, but basically that's the setup of it. Basically, that they're going to elect an AI pope.
Yeah. This is what everyone's been waiting for, right?
Yeah.
That's like the first line, and it's true.
think about all the people it will bring into the fold, and this is a pope that will never need to be replaced, probably because it can just be maintained with some minor repairs every now and then.
Yeah, eternal, just like God.
Eternal pope. Hmm. Interesting. And I really enjoyed that story. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was when he called the selection of the pope, the process around it. I think he called it poetic or something, and I agreed so completely with that. Like how they let everyone know whether they've chosen the pope or not. Have you guys read Angels and Demons?
Yes.
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 Yeah, that was the one that dealt with the cardinals and like the pope selection
Yes. That's
thing,
right.
right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were some cardinals that died brutal deaths, which was the reason why I decided to never read more Dan Brown. But maybe I have the stomach for it again.
Read. I don't want to go. Is it the Fortress Hidden Fort? No, what's the one? The Fortress one, the one about code breaking. I actually quite like that Dan Brown book. I think
Okay,
that
okay.
sits nicely within. It's the kind of suspension of reality kind of thing that happens in Engines Demons. I mean, great fun to read, but
Well,
like,
I'll check it out. Because
uh,
it's a good fast-paced book. I just didn't care
yeah,
for the brutal deaths, but then I've
yeah,
read brutal stuff
Yeah.
since.
You
self-flagellation,
can
not
also
the
watch.
harshness.
You can also watch the Borgias. That they have.
Oh yes, yes,
The
yes,
Pope
indeed. Of
election
course,
there as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
Conclave, yeah.
Yeah.
Robert Harris and Ralph Fiennes.
But yeah,
Hmm.
I found it interesting that you had these the bishop and the rabbi and the other three, and the bishop and the rabbi were for the election
Hmm.
of the robot pope, and the other three who weren't associated with a religious organization were against it. And I like that contrast because it allowed for Silverberg to do just a like you said a lot of satire and
Yeah.
just nice little zingers and stuff. It's
Yeah.
fun. It
I
was
mean, it's
fun.
really entertaining writer. I mean, that was definitely a sense. Having never read Silverberg aside from this, and obviously Book of Skulls, um, you definitely get a sense of an added sense, maybe of who he is as a writer. I think it's lacking a bit of depth, but it's not a very long story, so to speak. But you know, I like how they poke fun at the fact that like this robot will bring technological people to the church. I thought that
Yep.
was really good. And actually, for a bit of context, this was written not long, I suppose maybe 10 years after what would have been Vatican II. So, for those that don't know, the Catholic Church and around Vatican II, when that was put in, was like a modernization of the church. So, it was like the new Pope was bringing in, they were rewriting the Mass, essentially changing the prayers and all of that kind of stuff within the Catholic Church. And so, like, the election of the Pope was a reflection of the changing times. And I think that's sort of what this is mimicking and mirroring in this kind of short story
Yeah.
a little bit, but yeah, I thought it was quite fun, and also the idea that this is probably the last pope that will ever be elected, then, because it's an AI, and they're not going to be able to do this kind of ceremony again with the black smoke and the straw, and the baths being burned and then becoming white smoke. Like, I don't know, that was good fun. It was.
Oh yeah. if he's uh if he's elected, he's planning an immediate time sharing agreement with the Dalai Lama and a reciprocal plug in with the head programming of the Greek Orthodox Church.
Yeah,
It was just there was a bunch of funny lines like that. I was just like,
yeah.
oh boy.
There was one that I meant to highlight, but I can't remember it now. And I'm searching through this text, I'll never find it. But yeah, there were a lot of very funny lines and things to grab onto.
Yeah, when they mess up the statistics in Yugoslavia and stuff like that, and it was good stuff. Good stuff.
Yep, yep, it's good.
Uh, yeah, and they even mentioned the fixes in, and how there was some politics involved in getting this robot elected.
Yeah,
Yeah, they had to bribe some of the cardinals to back out, right?
Yep. Yeah, very very much so. Yeah, and yeah, and he had a lot of mentioning of other religions as well, and
yeah,
he poked his fun at them as well, and
yeah.
yeah,
Outsourcing the bar mitzvahs, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, and the uh, the funny thing was at the when the election went through and all that stuff, the Pope Sixtus the Seventh
Yes.
gets up there and gives his speech, and their friend Kenneth finally pays for the last round. He's like they were complaining the whole time that he's the cheapskate and never pays, and then finally he's the one who actually buys the round at the end when the Pope's elected.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
yeah, was indeed.
Yep. Good story, good book, good reading all around. No
Yeah,
longer feeling slumpy because of
this
reading
is
Dreamdy.
so
Yeah,
refreshing, isn't it?
Yes.
yeah. It's yeah, it's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
We're back in a groove. It feels like.
Yes, we are. Cool. That seems like a good note to wrap up today. We will be reading, I think, up to chapter 13, was it? Of Memory Called Empire.
Yeah.
And what was the short story? I have to pull it up again.
Uh, it has changed, or it was changed by Joanna Russ
Yeah.
When it changed.
when it changed. There you go.
Yes. Oh, the one after that is called "And I Awoke and Found Mr. Here on the Cold Hillside." Anyway,
Nice.
I like funny short story names. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.